Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the weekly AI Revolution call. I'm Bryce Smith with Trading with Cody and 10,000 Days Capital Management. And as always, we're joined by John Dio, who is our resident AI expert. And we may be joined by Cody Willard, my boss, here shortly, who runs 10,000 Days Capital Management. But every week we talk about the happenings in AI. The AI revolution is on in full force, and amazing that there's like substantive announcements that come out every week, and we never have a problem filling up content for this YouTube call. So, John, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Great.
Yeah, it's true. This week again, it just keeps coming, and it's on multiple fronts, and it made me feel like we ought to somehow start to like document it. Not like you guys can come out with another book anytime you want, I guess.
Right.
But I'm thinking more like we go back over like what are the categories, because there's stuff happening with models, which are the kind of the underlying power of the stuff happening with AI, robotics, graphics, sound, voices, like all these different areas. And we could just kind of keep track of that a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I have a slide printed out that I keep in my office. It's taped up or I'd show it, but like Morgan Stanley went through and like just made a timeline of, some of the major AI events that have happened, starting basically with the ChatGPT moment, as it's known, which was in November of 2022. And that really kind of ignited the current inferno that is the AI revolution. But in that amount of time, it's now over 2 years, right at 2 years, I guess. And there's been so much happening. So much has changed. The market has changed. The economy has changed. Like there's been real substantive change because of the AI revolution. And so we get to talk about all that every week. And yeah, there really is amazing things happening every week. So what happened this week that would you like to talk about first, John?
So on the models front, there's some word from OpenAI that they're getting ready for. They've got out there a thing called O1 that they're getting ready for, like a thing called O2.
Oh, so really?
It's kind of version of that. And then also they were talking, I think, about the timing on their next sort of GPT-5 like model, and I think it's like we're looking at spring of 2025 for that. Some new robot videos. The Boston Dynamics, who used to have the they've tons of stuff, but you could picture like the parkour robot,
or right.
Jumping
and backflips and
flipping and climbing up on scaffolding and tossing a package around. So all these different kinds of things. So that was Atlas, which looked kind of like this big built thing, and they came out not too long ago with their robot that is electric, which is their other ones weren't. They were, I think, it was like pistons and things.
Right.
So electric's new for them. But with that electric robot, they just demonstrated it doing well. That's the Atlas one.
Right. So this, I just was for reference. This is the old robot that John's talking about. It
and then go to the upper left. If you go to the upper left image there, that's the new one.
Yeah.
And
they went from electric, hydraulic power to electric here.
Yeah. And the electric one has got, it's more than double jointed. It can kind of walk with its whole kind of torso facing backwards. It can walk forwards, things like that.
Yeah.
But this is it. Just check out this video here. The cool, this is like taking a car part and pulling it out of one area where they've all been kind of produced to that point. It does that weird turn, and then it's finding a a slot to put it in, and it's all set. And now it's going to think about the next one to go do. So it looks backwards around over there at that. It heads back over again, the weird turnaround, and picks the next thing up. Here's the interesting thing. There is zero human involvement. This is entirely autonomous. It was sent off to go, work on this, and it just, from there it just did it.
Is this quick question, John? Do you think this video is in real time or is this sped up?
I think it's real time. I think that
that's pretty good, like reaction time and movement, like the speed, like if that's all in real time, then that's very impressive.
I think the reason I think it is because there's sort of been a agreement now that if you're anything other than real time, you're showing it on the video in the corner with it like 2x or stuff like that.
Right. So, yeah, that's what Tesla always does. They show like 2x or real time, whatever it may be.
Yeah, because if it's not, if it's not real time and if they've sped it up and didn't say so, they face scrutiny and it's not illegal, but they just face like trouble from everyone who follows this stuff.
And it's just amazing to watch this because it looks like you're watching an animation. Don't you think? Like it's hard to, like, it doesn't look real. It just doesn't. And I think the same thing every time I see a video of a Tesla's Optimus doing something. It looks like it was made with AI.
It went to different places for what it got there too. Like the first one was from behind him was the thing over on the left, and then it was over on the right. It's like, look, it's going to different ones. It may even be that there's something written on the delivery slot for telling him where he has to, get it from, like what it's looking for that kind of part.
Yeah.
Because it's going to these different places. Kind of does things a bit weirdly how he holds it out to the side as he goes, but it works, and that was the thing. It just had to figure out what works. Now,
so what do you think, John? Just a couple questions. I'll just let this keep playing in the background while we're talking about it. But do you think? Oh, there's Cody. How? Hey, Cody, how are you?
Good. I keep going.
Okay.
Hi there.
How did they train this to do that? Did humans perform this action right here? Or was it? Just walk me through how you think they trained this robot to perform this action.
I was just thinking of that, right? As you were about to ask that, was because a human can't do what it's doing here.
Right.
Like it can't put its head on backwards and then twist its torso the other way, right? Yeah. So like something's different, even if there was some involvement. Well, Cody, what we were pointing out first off was that this is fully autonomous. Like it does this for half an hour, and there's no human involved that whole time. It's just figuring out what it needs to go grab next, finding out where to put it, putting it in. This is the one from Boston Dynamics.
Can we define the term fully autonomous when it comes to robots then? Because to me, it should be able to do this without anyone. I mean, I guess does fully autonomous count that if you have coded it to do this task repeatedly, and that's it?
And it's not my understanding is that there's no human intervention during it. The human is in the beginning asking for what they want done, put these things in there. And we know that the way these things are done nowadays, there isn't procedural code for doing that. There's the model is kind of following through and doing what you would do for having a goal and then figuring out the steps you're going to take in planning that goal. And yeah, I could be wrong, but that's where things are going and where the other ones are, what they're doing. But yeah, I take autonomous to mean that there's no intervention during that half hour. Now, if they had coded something, number one, it would probably be too brittle to count on for that amount of time to go try to specifically say.
You don't think you could have coded this and had it do this same task repeatedly for 30 minutes over and over until it was good enough to show this video?
If what you coded was as high level as get a panel out of a slot from the storage boxes, insert the panel into the
No. I mean,
bot.
in my mind, you know, the Boston Dynamics is probably done this with C++ code. Like, hey,
They
use
used
your
to.
hand, grab this, and it's like literally step by step coded to do this over and over. And I think like you know, when it changes, when it decides to go to the other supply cabinet there instead of this supply cabinet, I think that coded. I don't think it wasn't a choice by the robot. I think it did it on its own after it had been told, here's what you're going to do, and we're going to code you to do this over and over. And now they've finally got it right. And they're like, all right, set it up and record it.
Boston Dynamics used to do exactly what you're saying, and they moved toward the more model-based, like everybody else. Now, whether they still had a lot of the kind of subroutines, like that if what you're doing is reaching down for something, and there's some information about that, but it is depending on its vision. It's depending on looking at seeing something. It's not like don't worry, it'll be there. Just go to that place. It's like it is.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Then
Yeah.
I mean, that is we are. If this is, you know, this stuff's been probably built on NVIDIA chips, also, right? Just like everybody else is, and that means that this thing's less than 2 years in the making, and we're already at this level of sophistication.
There's a lot of kind of learning off each other from the different companies that are doing it, and not starting from scratch. Can you go back, Bryce, about 45 seconds or something? Interesting thing happens. He's going to put this piece in on the right, and he gets it doesn't quite work.
Right.
And he goes, okay, that didn't work. Let me go. So clearly it wasn't programmed to like have it not work.
It's sort of like when Elon threw the ball through the window at the Cybertruck reveal. Everybody was like, oh my God, what a disaster. Like, dude, that was calculated. They planned that.
I just, for comparison purposes, I'll show you like how Tesla is training their Optimus, and they do it by like mimicking humans who are wearing these suits. So I'll share this tab.
So yes, this is is training. It's not like how it's doing it. Well, it was during their demo day,
right?
But it's not like how it intends to be happening ongoing. But something that's happened with the Tesla one in the last couple of weeks is, you know, in Optimus's latest update, it can go walk into a room that it's never been in, kind of map it out, see if there are people there, walk around them. You know, so it's becoming more autonomous.
Yeah, I think the humanoid robotics revolution will rival space as the biggest economic revolutions in our lifetimes. It sure looks like the way this stuff is advancing, accelerating in its advancement, following the Kurzweilian rate of acceleration for technological revolution, is this is going to be here before the space. This will be $1 trillion economy before space is $8 trillion economy. I mean, this stuff looks like it's going to be here in 2 to 4 years. You think, John, we'll purchase a humanoid robot that maybe not fully autonomous and can copy you and everything you want you to do and fold your laundry.
I was just going to find you a laundry robot. Okay.
Right.
And what's interesting about the laundry robot is it's just for laundry, and it doesn't look like a humanoid robot. Here's the one. Gotta share this. Can I take over the screen there?
Yeah.
I got to figure out how to do it.
Down there it says present. Or if it was Christmas Day, you'd say present.
Or if you were saying that you taking attendance.
Yeah, I was stopping the joke where it was. We didn't have to go to that one too. You could just push the button to share, then we would be okay.
Share screen. Is that what I'm looking for?
Yeah, present down there, and then share screen.
Yeah. Oh, I guess at that point it lets me say. Okay. So this one has music. Didn't mean for it, but this is at 2 times speed.
I mean, it's coming, dude. It's coming.
So,
And this thing, there's paper written on it and stuff, and it's like, it's not perfect, but it does a lot. But I'm going to jump ahead to where it's like, watch this, same robot. Like, oh, maybe I could have done that quicker. Yeah, but I don't have to be here while it's
That's exactly what I was saying. Like, dude, this is slow motion at 2 times speed. But you know what? If I'm not in the fucking room and it's doing it while I'm at my office, we all win.
We all win, yeah.
But it's also, I just keep coming back to, like, I mean, you know, this would be like, John, when we were in college and at UNM, they showed us email on their archaic, slow bandwidth email system in 1994. And you're like, cool, email's going to be amazing someday. And it was another, 5 or years before my mom and dad had email at AOL or something. But it happened, right? And this stuff is going to happen probably not in 5 years, but in the next 2 to 3 years. This stuff just keeps accelerating in its development.
Yeah, I mean, if you can sort it and then put it in the washer and then transfer it to the dryer and then take it out and fold it, it's like, that's not so bad.
I don't think it's bad at all.
And it doesn't have to be the humanoid one that does this. You can have a specialized one for something like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's also just it'll be, classic, whether you want a specialized unit that can do one thing or a handful of things over and over very well, clean your house, mop, sweep, etc. Or do you want the Optimus robot or some other humanoid robot that is almost generic, and then you can purchase whatever apps and services you want it to perform and download them and pay some monthly fee to Tesla and the and the company that supplied the app.
Yeah.
So, John, going back to the training, that robot, whether it's Boston Dynamics or Tesla's, has to be trained, from my understanding, based on like visual data of like where Tesla was doing it, and having from the perspective of the robot, right? Like you have a camera on your head, you have sensors on your hands, and you provide that data for the robot. Right?
It's from the perspective of the robot, but what they're beginning to do is have it be able to be from the perspective of any robot, and have it like when it's mapping out, a building. One robot walks down a hallway.
Right.
All of the robots now know that hallway.
So, but it's still, what I was going to ask is what is needed to where the robot you can say, watch me do this, and then the robot just watches you do it, and then it can do the task after having watched you do it, even though it doesn't have the data from the perspective of like first party.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's a progression to be able to get to that point, because right now the other reason it's from the way it is not just because it's first person, but because of the relationship that's formed between vision and motion. It's like, oh, you see this thing and here's what you do with this thing. You got to, even with that, the fact that the humans are involved when they're telling it what to do, think of how advanced that is from here's C++ code, or something. It's like, there's nobody writing any code up front of that. There is like showing how you do it. There's showing from the inside. And like we are talking about, will be showing from the outside, the way we teach to each other.
So how long do you think before we have like the third party where I can watch a third party and learn from that?
I don't know if
years away, months away.
I'd be wrong. Whatever. It's like we're all going and taking our guesses at these things. I would say I'm tuning my forecasting based on things that have happened so far, and in some cases, taking things that, you know, I thought would take longer and seeing how fast they happened, like we see just with the robots in general over the last couple of years, incredible growth. And the other case, it's the other direction where it's like, that takes a little longer to do this or that, you know. So, you know, and so many things seem to be on the inside a year track, and other things that's, you know, for getting out into the market seem to be on the 2 to 4 year track or something.
It was interesting how you phrased it, that you were tuning your fork casting.
Fork casting, yes.
Yeah. Tuning fork. What frequency are you trying to tap in there? And there actually is something you're trying to get accurate and where it might reverberate eventually.
Yeah.
Is the constraint now on some of this stuff data for, you know, video input data? Or, I mean, certainly it's partly that. Is it also still waiting? It needs the NVIDIA Blackwell next generation chips to take it to another level. Even 2 or 3 years from now, whatever the next, you know, two generations of NVIDIA AI chips from now, how much advancement will that enable this stuff, along with millions of robots being out in the markets creating data for their parent company?
So first, I think is we're still talking about data, just as we were, you know, 5 years ago when this stuff was just kicking off and everything. But in this case, somebody wearing a suit and, you know, doing a thing, that is data. It's like producing the data as it goes. That is training data. You know, so there's that. The data piece, I think, comes first. You know, I don't. The chips provide a couple things. One is, you know, speeds everything up, but also, you know, as we've seen, like you guys have talked about, the this stuff where this technology we're talking about wouldn't even have existed if we didn't have, you know, some extreme speed ups and ability to handle a ton more data, to process a ton more data. So that's what got us here. And so I expect it'll keep getting us here in interesting ways. There's on the side of an example, on the side of video or graphics creation. So we're talking about, you know, taking it in. That's one thing. But on the side of like putting it out as well, there's recent advancements to where the stuff that makes a, you know, a realistic image and so forth can happen in 2 steps instead of 150 steps. And that's, it didn't go in between. It just jumped from, there's like a new development and it makes it like, boom, it's there. And so now you can make an image of, you know, a dog walking up a hill in the snow with a blah, 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 whatever, 1 second, 1.5 seconds.
Yeah.
And it just makes it. Another is the kind of technology that makes the 3D. I'm trying to think. Is it Unity Engine? What's the one that is
Unreal Engine?
The Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
They had a competitor, but the Unreal Engine.
Unity is the competitor.
Yeah.
It's probably a second best. Bryce, Tencent owns 40% of parent company of Unreal Engine, which is.
You asking me?
Yes.
Tencent. That's the company.
No, who's the parent company that they own 40%
Epic
of?
Games.
Epic Games. Same
Epic.
owner as Fortnite.
Okay, so the technology that creates that kind of stuff, which came from 2 different directions and was like at one point, you know, can you make I don't know if it's trapezoids, you know, with the thing that represents a kind of a side of a shape, and they can make like 10 million of them to like render in a second and make some scene, is now, instead of happening with those like those kinds of geometries, is more made out of like pixels, and then can you see through or not, and so forth. And those are doing a similar thing with the speed up. And so if that speed up's happening on the side of generation, to where an image all at once, or having a 3D scene that you can like move around a thing and it's producing it from any angle. The advancement there is that it's doing the ray tracing as well, so that if you had, reflections in water and glass and all the, like, it's doing very well with those as well as the other things, and doing it like real time as you move around stuff. Unbelievable, amazing. But if you're doing it there with creating stuff, I think you're getting some of the same ability on the speed up side of what you're looking at, to just really see what you're looking at, not to kind of go, oh, like walking.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, and I think what you underscore there is it's not like the chips alone advance. It all advances together, including the method of machine learning and how, like, the fundamental approach to how it learns everything. People are constantly refining and getting it faster, better, and more efficient, more power efficient, more time efficient, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Can we shift gears for a moment to Palantir?
Oh, well, just last thing on that was the other thing besides the technology. I think that the kind of call it technology, whether the software side and the hardware side, is the fact that because all those things are working so well and amazing things happening, is you have a people side that, used to be, 100 people in the world doing it, and now there's like 500,000 people in the world doing it. And that makes a huge difference too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there'll be 500 million people in the world, maybe not creating AI, but using AI within the next few months. If we're not already at that level.
Yeah.
John, really smart hedge fund friend of mine has struggled with Palantir along with Bryce and I, and getting our arms wrapped around what they are. Initially, we were worried they might just be a fancy AI consultancy wrapped around a software platform, maybe. But the reason I bring it up is because when we first started doing these calls, we talked a little bit about how AI had shifted from an ontological approach of training it on fundamental baseline levels and teaching it the concepts of reality and gravity and upside down versus right side up and all kinds of things. And it's like everything sort of moved on from that, but that word keeps coming up every time I talk to him about Palantir, and the idea being that Palantir is sort of trying to create a generic ontological platform for modern AI. And it does have some of that ontology built into it that other AI companies and LLMs do not have. So I just wonder, do you know much about Palantir? Have you been seeing how they've been progressing, and are you a believer? Just if you can talk about Palantir at all.
I mean, I worked for, I don't know a ton, but I worked for a company that I would say did a similar thing. And with these differences, we weren't doing it as a product for others. We were doing, I think, that some of the kinds of things Palantir does, but for our own company. That this company's not even around anymore. But the idea is not just the incorporation of ontology, but it's also the kind of managing the data pipeline for enterprise data that's used in the creation of that AI. It is integrating so that the logic of that business, kind of what are their business rules, are a part of that AI. So like we're doing it for ourselves, they're doing it for everyone, but they're still on a per company basis. They're doing it for. They're saying we're going to help you get AI really to be a fundamental piece of substrate of your business, and to do so, it can't just be this, smart little chatbot that's dropped in or something. It's like, what is your actual business? What are you up to? What's the data?
So walk us through when you say walk us through what we mean by ontology in this case.
Mm-hmm. So, I think of it as the bones of the AI body. But ontology is puts structure on data to where any given data, say that data that your company deals with, say like your company deals with producing chips, then there's so much kind of specifics around, well, what are the different kinds of chips? And for this kind of chip, what is its tolerances for all different pieces of it? And what is the process that it goes through for creating it? And at each stage of that, who are the people involved? So I think of it like a graph that supports facts for running your business and for just all of the things, the knowledge related to your business. And those facts, if you think of any given like noun that makes up something in your business, say it is, memory chip or something, that's a noun. And think of that as being this circle over here. And then think of the capacity I'll just call it, a terabyte. I'm going to treat that like it's a noun, a terabyte, because you have different sizes that are important and that you have once. Those things exist once, and for your whole business, they're just once, and then they're connected by lines. Like this particular version of this chip has a capacity of a terabyte, and so you've got a line connecting them. So now picture just tons of circles with lines connecting them, almost like neurons in your brain that are, connected to each other. And what you have is the basis for saying new things. And when you say those new things, we're going to go and say, hey, this shipment's going to be late. It's like people don't have to go, oh, what shipment did you mean and for what thing? And did you mean on a truck or a train? And like all the things that all takes out all the ambiguity for all of the work that's happening within a company and makes it like facts that, while you just say this one sentence, but because you chose the exact right terminology to say that sentence, that graph of that sentence is worth 10,000 words because it's very specific.
Okay. Palantir just reported after hours. I haven't read the report, but the stock was up again. The problem with Palantir is valuation. It's trading at like 40 times next year's sales or something at this point, right, Bryce?
Yeah, it's up there.
Yeah.
I mean, well, like everything used to be 20, but nowadays, like lots of these companies are.
Nah, there's not many trading. Like ARM and Palantir are probably the two most expensive price to sell stocks I can find.
Yeah.
Not talking about some pharma that has some drug in development, no revenue yet, but
historically, how high has Apple gotten?
Apple is 30 times earnings. And Bryce, what is it on a price to sales?
8 times or something, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, you're saying they're 40 times price to sales?
Price to sales, John.
For Palantir.
For Palantir.
Right. It's
Yeah,
probably like 200
super
250 times earnings or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And Bryce, what are the gross margins on Palantir? Like 65%, as I recall. It's been a while since we looked at it.
Yeah, I'll just look it up.
Which is also why we've had a hesitation the whole time. It just seems like if it was a true AI software platform, those margins should be scaling quickly and getting to like 85, 90% or something. I don't know.
They're there. They're 84%.
Are they?
Yeah.
82, you know how you talk
82%.
about, sorry. You know how you talk about the how like Tesla's worth it if you think of them as a robot company on top of everything else. Like if you talk about just the cars, maybe not, but when you figure in everything else that they're doing and so forth, it's like I could see Palantir making that argument, but not well, because it, like you talk about, it's not the vision isn't super clear to say this is the thing that's worth that value.
Yeah, well, I guess, John, the vision has to be that what you just described is you've got S&P 500 companies out there that need to figure out how to implement AI into all facets of their business, from supply chain to customer resource to HR, CRM, everything a company does. And if Palantir can provide, as you worded it, the framework, an ontological framework for the company's proprietary data and how they can use it to make AI work, there's a huge growth there. I mean, there's decades of tens of billions of dollars of growth. Mm-hmm. And so you could, Bryce and I run models on all our companies out 3 to 5 years every time we analyze anything. And so we've done that with Palantir. And you can, depending on the assumptions you make on the top line growth, it can be really expensive in 5 years or not so expensive in 5 years.
So if you're like for a global company, you're providing for them what's the equivalent of like the ERP and CRM and blah, 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 like take the top 3 like company kind of technologies that the company runs on and say, yeah, everyone has this or that, but for where we're headed, we're like 3 of those.
Yeah, the way you just phrased that's really good. It's almost like Palantir total addressable market and what it's going to potentially disrupt is the totality of CRM software companies, ServiceNow, CRM. What's CRM's actual name?
Salesforce.
Salesforce. Like Bryce, name 3 or 4 of the biggest.
Workday.
All of those, right? Like that's what Palantir. If Palantir can actually be the AI version of those things. That's like that's $1 trillion company.
What do you call it? Like a Siebel or one of those where
Siebel? That's CRM. That's also CRM.
Oh, that they're CRM. Who's the one? I would
ERP.
Yeah, before CRM even when you had
ERP, enterprise resource planning.
Yes, the business like is running on that. It's not even just your front office stuff. It's
right. AI ERP is what we're talking about. That's what Palantir can be. It can be a platform for AI ERP.
SAP is doing.
That's what SAP is also trying to do. Yeah.
I mean, can SAP keep up when they at a certain point with a company like SAP, you are held down by yourself.
Your legacy recurring revenues get to be. That's, the classic discussion. Do you cannibalize yourself or do you let someone else do it?
Because your legacy is like, on the one hand, the fact that revenues come from it makes you stick to doing it. And from the other hand, like if you're going to keep it going, it's a kind of this growing portion of you that has to pay attention to this Leviathan, to try to even like, we want to like change a date format.
Yeah, and look, and frankly, SAP, I don't think can. It's a European company on top of everything else, and I just don't think they're cut out for this next generation. And I don't own Palantir. I don't know that I can bring myself to buy it at this stage with this valuation at all. I'm just talking about it out loud because the word ontology has come up in the last probably 5 times in the last 2 weeks when I've talked to people about Palantir. And I think of you every time, obviously, because Psych, your original AI employer, was AI ontology in the 90s.
And I still think it's an important, from everything I see happening, the stuff coming out of like OpenAI doesn't answer that question. It is the answer is a combination of the stuff that OpenAI has and the ontology stuff, putting those 2 pieces together.
Do you have any idea, are there other companies that truly are in the same galaxy, call it, of AI ontology being their basis for existence?
I mean, Sycor is still around, but they're very, very small and are supplying it into more like supplying the suppliers, like getting to the people who are doing the AI stuff.
Literally, Palantir might be using some Psych.
I think they're more doing what others should do about Palantir if you don't buy it, which is mimic some things, learn from it. So it's like if you're not going to go buy Palantir, and if you're in the if your way of looking at it is that what are you going to buy, then you got to see what else there is, like you're asking about. If your interest is more coming from the standpoint of that company who isn't using Palantir, they got to go, are we going to buy in to this very expensive proposition, or are we going to look at what they're doing, believe that they're on the right track about this and that aspect, think that they're likely to be the next SAP in terms of just, hemming themselves into a corner, not in a way that helps my company, but just because that's what tends to happen with them. And then it's a build versus buy.
Yeah, I think AI is advanced far enough, and Palantir, talking this through is making me bullish on Palantir on everything but the price, because I don't think Coca-Cola's best people could ever compete with what Palantir can bring to the table when it comes to using AI inside corporations.
Yeah. So and they can't, I don't think either, but I think that a different way to look is more for substitutes. So what is the outcome that Coca-Cola is getting? And if they spend their AI money in a different way, do they get kind of similar value, similar kind of growth in the things that they're after by doing it a different way, going after a different thing, incorporating AI without worrying about that particular.
You just made me think of the concept. It's almost like we need to keep a mind towards like Meta, not the company, but Meta, the concept AI. And AI itself will get ever better because AI will help make AI ever better. And it'll make it like there will be companies that literally be like, oh, you want to do what Palantir does? We can do it easier from scratch now using the latest AI in 2030.
Yes. And I think that this is the thing is that if you get too locked into a starting point of they're the Coca-Colas and so forth, and they're going to need to get big software from somebody versus more like we keep saying it, let's believe ourselves, things are going to change really drastically. And so when they do, where should we be? What should we be invested in, and so forth? And maybe it's not in the big, slow to create software that helps the big, slow to change companies, because other things around them are going to change so fast that, it's time to look elsewhere. I don't know.
Yeah. Bryce, thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of thoughts, but number one is like going back to the data integration. Are they like you keep your data in the cloud, and then you build, Palantir comes in and you give them access to it, and then they help you manage it, I guess. I mean, you're not going to be storing your data or housing your data with Palantir, right?
Yeah.
I mean, CRM and SAP, they have the data. Like the data comes from them. You originate it through their platforms, and then they help you manage it. But I don't think that's the case with Palantir.
No, they're getting more. They're getting smarter about like private clouds.
Okay. So, S&P 500 corporations.
I meant like a Palantir. It's kind of like, hey, customer, however you're set up, we're gonna work with that. We don't own it. You're where you are, but we're going to deliver into it. So it's a step away from the typical SaaS.
Palantir feels a little bit like a UI layer that's on top of.
Yeah, Bryce, that sounds interesting. That's an interesting way of putting it, isn't it? It's almost like you're going to take your existing platforms and just have another interface and not just another interface, but it'll be another interface that does AI stuff, not in the same. And I wonder if there's an edge there, because you'll be like, they're almost agnostic to where the data is, whereas CRM isn't going to integrate with SAP.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
That could go both ways.
It can go both ways. At the same time, CRM is going to continue to use AI to make their products ever better too. But if they're missing part of the picture because, they're only, the CRM for some of their customers, I don't know. It's interesting.
So like, it's not just about though, like UI makes it sound like, okay, you made it easier for that company's, employee to get and interact with this stuff. But again, these businesses have huge existing infrastructure of operational databases and data warehouse type things, and so Palantir is hooking into that stuff as well. So it's not just to the human who's interacting, but it's connecting them back to the data where it lives.
Yeah. And I know, like, on their military stuff, because they've shown some like videos on Twitter, it looks like on that, like, you can almost control assets in the field through the Palantir interface. So it is more deeply integrated than just like surface level graphics and things like that, right?
Yeah.
It's actually built in. It's part of the whole ecosystem. At least that's what it appears from the military stuff. And it's hard to wrap my head about what they're really doing for businesses, but their commercial growth has been very strong. So they're doing something well that companies, at least right for the time being, have high demand.
I wonder if Accenture and Palantir, Accenture will almost be like, they signed this deal with OpenAI. Accenture would be a company that could partner with Palantir or compete with Palantir. Palantir can be like, you don't even need Accenture, just come to us and we'll do all the AI platform for you.
Yeah, I would lean towards the latter there.
Yeah.
They are competitors.
Yeah. So they're I mean, you're saying like, well, what are they doing for folks, whatever? They're infusing a business with AI and enabling that business to operate intelligently when the AI is the kind of stuff we see like with a language model like OpenAI, and with the AI is more rule-based about what's allowed or not allowed to happen somewhere, so that they can, I know that I've kind of from the things I looked at with them, that they can take a use case and make it happen like very quickly. And then my interest is, as AI keeps improving with things like agents and actions, being able to control things, like send the agent to go off and do things, can they keep up for incorporating those things as they come out? And I guess, it's definitely true they'll be able to do it faster than, the people inside an IT department.
Right.
So, yeah.
Interesting stuff. Well, it just, some of the stuff reminds me of like being a junior stockbroker in 1997 at Oppenheimer and trying to understand how the internet worked, and just trying to understand how you had servers that had content, but people could interface with those servers, and then the servers connected to why are windows jumping around?
Because your hand.
Maybe I'm doing that.
I was doing. I didn't know it was actually on the stream. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's really happening.
Yeah, it's like, wow, that is some. At any rate,
That's
the
funny.
servers, were here, and then they would connect through fiber optic to other servers that would then get them into a copper wire through DSL, and then there was a modem at someone's house, and then you were going to watch some sort of, something, not even watch. You were going to pull up some text wording on your browser. But then I was also trying to understand what like AOL IM Instant Messenger and MSN Messenger were, and were they apps or were they server, just browser things, and just and to this day, always trying to understand how the chips tie into the software, and it's all very difficult when you start working on it. But after years and or even just months of being around and talking this stuff through and reading reports, we will understand some of these points that we're debating right now about like Palantir, and are they holistically integrating across AI, or will other companies approaches who are like agnostic about whether they can send you to Palantir or ChatGPT or both at the same time, and you can integrate. Like it's going to be fascinating to see how AI all gets integrated together, and we have to have these discussions and continue to learn about how the different AI companies fit in and compete or partner and all of the stuff over the next year, 5 years, 10 years. Go ahead, John.
I being the one among us here who knows nothing about investing, I still think that when you talk about Palantir and you're like, yeah, but are they a buy or whatever? I think of it like that. I would, as we talk about all these companies and everything, is say, are they on the side of possibly a member of these revolutionary ones that are they play a part in what's happening in the future, or are they not? You know, make that the first slice, and then go, okay, because they make it into my, let's say, like if I were like building a mutual fund out of the, you know, that's a tech, you know, future tech revolution focused mutual fund, I'd have them in there. It might only be one share, you know, I don't know what, but like if I've got a mixture, they count as,
you know, John, the only problem with what you're saying there is, you know, we're always trying to keep our portfolio relatively concentrated among the very best and not just all of them, because it gets unwieldy. There are 40 or 50 absolute no-brainer right now revolutionary companies that are, you know, Palantir would be one of them, and CrowdStrike, and Bryce could riff off 20 or 30 off the top of his brain that we don't own, even though they absolutely are revolutionary companies. The problems can be like with Microsoft. You're like, hey, I think they messed up with their ChatGPT instead of going on their own for AI. And then it can be another company that you're like, the valuation is like Palantir. You're like, the valuation just I'm not comfortable with. Like, you're always trying to get the biggest and best into the portfolio, but doing it at reasonable valuations. And there's a balance to it all. And it just takes discipline, time, energy, and repetition, and mistake making, and repeating, and trying not to make those mistakes the next time.
Just on the side of that question of like, you know, keeping the number down of how many it's only manageable to deal with X. What's that number maybe for how many?
It's not just about being able to manage it. It's also about being able to really make some good performance. If you end up with more than 25 positions, it gets really hard to have a huge blowout year.
It makes it mush. It's just mush.
Right. It just starts to be statistically insignificant because you're just sort of a refined. You're the Dow 30 almost, right? Like the Dow 30 and the S&P 500 are not perfectly correlated, but they're pretty darn correlated.
Yeah, but if the Dow 30 or S&P, let's say the Dow 30, if the Dow 30 were the kind of the Revolution 30, and it wasn't the Dow 30, and you already were like, these have to do with the future.
Yeah, no, John. Again, there's a balance to it all, and there is no scientific answer. But going back to your question, 12 to 18 is, I think, the sweet spot. Mm-hmm. I think if you could have the 12 very best, safest, fastest growing, most revolutionary, changing the world stocks in your fund and just hold on to them forever, it would be completely ideal. I don't think we live in an ideal world, and we're constantly trying to learn more. And sometimes you just want to buy a stock to learn a little bit about it and how it makes you feel, make sure you understand it and get to know it and read the reports and listen to the earnings calls as along versus just as someone listening to it. And you're always trying to balance more names that you're excited about with making sure you are concentrated enough to get some great performance, but not overly concentrated that you're just always going to sort of mimic the market.
But you're also describing this like those 12 or 18 are chosen in order to come up with like the product, which is that selection of 12 or 18 that then get managed carefully and so forth. Like, what about, again, coming from the ignorant guy, have him be like, this is the Space 10, this is the Robot 7. You know, like if people wanted to get into particular things in a particular way, to be like, well, yeah, we can go, this will take us outside the 12 to 18, but it'll be concentrated, but it'll be on a particular thing.
That'd just be a matter of time and money. I mean, it would cost, if you're launching a hedge fund, it costs you $100,000 to $200,000 for each one of those funds to get launched, and then you have to find investors and market it. And you can only market it to 99 accredited investors. You can't market it to the general public. You have to make a minimum investment of probably $100,000 to $250,000, or you could go start a mutual fund doing what you're describing, and it'll cost you, or an ETF, by the way. You can go start either of those, and it's going to cost you $500,000 to $1 million, because then you have to be registered with the SEC and you have to go through all the attorneys and
this is interesting. I want to take it.
And so, absolutely, in an ideal world, if I had unlimited time and money, that sounds like a pretty cool thing to do. Is, have Bryce and I run about 7 different specialty revolutionary funds about the 7 most revolutionary trends that we're excited about over the next 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's this job requires, you got to have guts, and you have to have discipline, and you have to figure shit out. And we shouldn't have to handicap ourselves with 7. We shouldn't hold ourselves back. Go find the 2 best revolutionary companies, not the 7 best, and make sure you're in the 2 best. Apple and Google.
So one more thing, and I want to relate it back to AI. How far are we, I'm asking, turn it on you now, from this thing, which is, let's say, they say it's at PhD level now in a lot of what it does with, math and other things. It could take like an economics Nobel laureate, and it could, give him a run for his money in how it makes in the kinds of things that it's comes up with, whatever. What do we need to have you to have a AI Bryce that lets you guys do what you're doing, but then you're managing these things as well, and you set it off to do it for you? Go make me a fund. It's like, obviously there's interfacing with the world that has to go on. But
John, the answer is I don't know, but I do think there's still magic in Bryce's brain that no AI can emulate.
Yeah, but can he interface with that agent? So he's sending it off, whatever, and it's coming back and going, hey Bryce, I know I don't know everything. I was doing all this stuff, finding this out, and
in some sense, Bryce is already doing that. Bryce, jump in here at any time, but Bryce plays with ChatGPT and Google Gemini and all the other AI LLMs on a regular basis, asking them to help him explain this technology or that technology, and go find these things for him. And
what John is describing is going to happen, and I think it's going to happen within the next year or 2. Once these have agentic capabilities and have the capability, at least with interface with other internet type apps. And I'm not the one that came up with that. That's Jensen Huang. And he said that in an interview the other day. And he said it's going to be like you have your email in your inbox, except you're going to have inbox messages from your AIs that are out working for you, and said, hey, Bryce, I know you sent me to go start this new fund. Vanguard needs this information about the entity. Okay, here's the information. and then it goes off. And then the next day I have a new inbox message from that AI, and it's like, yep, I got that to them. We need some credit card information to pay this fee for the attorney. And I think that is going to happen. And I think Jensen Wong thinks each person will have hundreds of those, and you'll get messages from them just like you would from a human employee.
My last idea around this was just that, imagine all what you just said, but take out the money, like you can need $100,000, start one of these things, whatever, and make it not quite real. So you're kind of simulating that you've done one of these, and just find out what's interesting that you can, do a run through with so that's what it's capable of or not. That's what it was able to find out. That's what it chose.
John, Bryce and I invested in a startup it's a tiny little startup. It's called Dub, D-U-B. And part of their idea, what they do basically is you can emulate other people's portfolios. You can dub someone else's portfolio. And so you can have the Warren Buffett portfolio and just go into Dub, and it's a broker, a broker, Bryce. Is that right?
Yeah, they're broker.
Yeah. So they literally can take, you can take $10,000 and be like, I want to copy what Bill Ackman, the hedge fund manager, is doing, and it puts it in the 8 stocks that he in the same ratio that he is, as far as they know. They're using public filings and things, and they could miss a month or two if something changes. And so we've met with him and even talked about the idea that they could create a trading with Cody. Potentially, we're not saying they are. We're like, hey, is it possible that you could create a trading with Cody portfolio, and you emulate the stocks that I put in that portfolio, and someone can go in there and just purchase that? And then if so, the only way I would ever agree to doing that would be if I got a fee every time someone does it or something. Well, and so going to the question, I'm just trying to get to the point that it is possible, now that I think about it, even right now, we could go start 5 or 6 different basket of stocks and put them on Dub, and people could go and do it. It's not going to be economically worth my time.
Well, unless because you're doing it that way, you are doing it to the best of your ability in combination with that AI agent, et cetera, where, it's going to get treated quite the same way as the real white glove thing you do now. And it is what Dub's doing, but it's like you're you're providing you're one of the providers into Dub, very more specifically, where Dub is faking or emulating its way toward what's it like to buy what that person bought. In this case, you're supplying, here's exactly what you can buy, and it's these 5 choices. And
John, as I'm even thinking it through, I just know there's going to be regulatory issues around it too, right? Where I just know that if I'm basically if I were to start marketing that stuff, I would almost be marketing a fund. I'm sure my attorneys at Seward and Kissel would have no
whole advice thing. Like, I'm not giving advice. I'm just telling you exactly what to buy.
Yeah, exactly.
It is that what you've described is basically the ARK model, and Kathy Woods, ARK Invest, is she's an innovation investor, and she's got her flagship fund, which is like her best ideas, and then she's got different ETFs for mutual, whatever they are, for genomics and internet, AI, robotics, whatever. She's got 6 or 7 of those things.
The problem is her performance has been
horrible. Buffett said, I saw a quote from him the other day, and he was talking about investing. He's like, if I could give you a punch card with 20 holes in it or whatever, and that was the number of investment decisions you got to make in your life, so you'd be better off than what most people do and invest and make hundreds or thousands of decisions over the course of their life, and most of them don't work, so.
Well, they really only need one.
Yeah, you only need one.
One decision.
One decision.
Just punch that hole for Cody.
Yeah, that's right. But it takes a lot of discipline. It's easy to chase ideas.
And that's what, going back to Bryce, I mean, that's, you and I struggle with this just today, yesterday, every day. It's like we go back through the portfolio and we're like, we should, like right now, what do we have? 18 names, Bryce? 19?
Yeah, probably 19.
19. And it's like, if I was going to force you to remove 2 of these names, which 2 would it be? And then we'll go through it, and we argue about whether we should take them out or not. And we're always, and then also part of the fund business, the investing business, is balancing how much you put into each one of the positions that you do have in the portfolio. Right. So by far our largest position is Tesla, and then Meta's up there. SpaceX is up there. NVIDIA's been up there for a long time and still is. So we just, we struggle with, trying to maintain how much exposure you should have to the markets at any given time. Warren Buffett is now in $325 billion cash. Is that more than 50% cash or almost 50% cash, Bryce? So he's sold 60% of his Apple stock so far this year. He sold more than 60% of his Bank of America stock. He quit buying his own stock back this quarter. Like, he sounds very bearish. And so, same thing. He's always, at one point, he had allowed Apple to get to 48-50% of his fund. And that's a big freaking bet. And now he's taking it down to about, I think, 18 or 20%.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just constant balance and decisions, and we're always trying to not waste our time, but we spend a lot of time trying not to waste our time, if you know what I mean.
Well, and then that's where AI comes back in. It's all about productivity, and it is for helping people who are doing real think work.
Yeah.
And you're doing stuff that a lot goes
into.
Yeah,
John, it would be nice if even I'll trade around these like Bitcoin miners. I'm short these crappy semi-fraudulent Bitcoin mining stocks off and on all year. And it would be nice to sort of like, I don't want to create an algorithm per se, but it would be nice to have a machine watch me and learn what I'm sort of the scope of what I'm approaching to do. And then sort of be like, hey, like, tell it, go back and look over the last 3 years of data and teach me how I should be doing this better. And then let's put in again, not quite an algorithm, but like tell it to, work. But
even before getting to it telling you anything about doing better, getting it to do even close to what you already do with what you figured out, just to operate sort of at your level, or to be able to see what you do and be able to like describe it back out in 10 different useful ways in email and blog post and decision log and like whatever, all the ways that it can go and turn your thinking into this fact, just this information,
Yeah. No. Yeah. But we all know that this is all that's what we're all recognizing. This stuff is coming. We just don't know how, when, or who's going to be the winner. Yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah. There's the two sides of it. There's always that, like, who's
pretty
going
much
to be a winner. What's that?
We know this is coming, but we know nothing about how it will happen.
Well,
we know it will happen, but we don't know when, why, how, or when, who,
or who will be involved.
There are these two sides to it. You keep coming back to the side of like, what does it mean for who I'm gonna, who we're gonna buy?
You lost your video, Cody. By the way,
it's like you're gonna like. It's all about like, well, finding out what we found out. Who are we gonna buy or sell? And I keep bringing it to the other side of it, or like, how are we gonna use this stuff for our own, for ourselves to be smarter?
Yeah, right.
Toward it. It's all connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the curse of a hedge fund manager. You do nothing that you're not at some point being like, hey, who benefits from that? Who wins from that? Who hurts?
And if a tool works well for you, you're like, maybe we should invest in this stock.
It always comes around to that with you.
Right.
All right, guys. That was a pretty good.
All right, excellent. Thank you, John. As always, appreciate your time and expertise. You're a good man on top of it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Bryce. Peace
Bye,
and love.
Peace.